You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy, the only show where we know that Lois Lane is not as essential as Superman as people want you to believe. I'm Jared. I'm here with Britt as usual. What's up, Britt?
Hey, how you doing?
So today we are creating a SuperWonder cinematic universe. So in other words, we're adapting the SnyderVerse to, instead of having him with Lois, have him with Wonder Woman. And so I have a slideshow that we are going to go over. If this thing can work, I'm in the middle of technical difficulties, but for the most part, because a lot of this was we're looking at, because there's so much potential in the Snyderverse, and we're trying to essentially adapt Superman and Wonder Woman power couple into our cinematic universe. Lord knows I've done this plenty of times with my fan edits, which it's a moment of pride. I adapted power couple, I think, pretty well.
Yes, you did.
The really hard part, by the way, of those is trying to piece the clips together of them interacting, because they barely ever did in the Snyderverse.
Right.
But our first movie, Man of Steel. So we're sticking with relatively the way this universe started.
Mm-hmm.
Except the plot is a little more. Except that with the plot, what Britt and I decided was it's relatively the same, except Wonder Woman's in the battle, and you basically adapt this moment from the New 52, except without the other JL members.
Yes, I think that within the beginning, it's like what I thought about was relatively the whole Man of Steel movie except for Lois. And with the idea of him traveling, like abroad a little bit more before he just goes to Metropolis. And I think that uh, a problem that I had was that he just went to the Daily Planet at the end. It wasn't any type of build up to him wanting to become a reporter.
True.
So I would think that, to expand on that, let him travel abroad, because he was like a what was it, like a just a traveler, this
he was a nomad, in other words.
Yeah, this mystery man that helps, in different areas. And then which will tie into Diana appearing in the background, and her home base is pretty much London at that time. So have him go there and help out there. And then he does come back to Metropolis, Smallville, and, that whole battle scene.
Which, yeah, 100% I'm behind that, because again, you could do the BVS Wonder Woman entrance like I did in my fan edit, and just do it with him against Zod, and there you go. There's Wonder Woman. It's like he met her, they remained friends, and then he didn't know who she was. Then she shows up, and he's like, "Wait, what?" And then you get I would insist that we do the whole "you're strong, I know" moment, because that's such a fantastic meeting between the two.
Right. And the also the ending of Man of Steel, I would change it to with taking out Lois, the family that he saves.
Mm-hmm.
Have them comfort him. And it's especially the children, and maybe more people coming in, and you see that conflict again, that plot setting up of, here's some people who are applauding him for that sacrifice, for killing Zod, and then you have some that's kind of on the fence a little bit. That's like, well, we don't agree with it, but they're interacting with that whole scene. It's a sad scene, but it's also just to show that he is a hero of the people, you
Mhm.
know. And then, yeah, maybe if you do want to put Lois in there as just the reporter and introduce Jimmy too. So you
Oh,
are putting the characters in the supporting cast in. It's just, different.
yeah, it's just you're adding in a pretty substantial character into the movie. Then we
Yeah,
get, and essentially, it's not like they get together at the end of this movie. It's a slow burn build up to that because then you can really appreciate it. In other words, they don't end up together at the end.
right. It's mostly with Diana's role in Man of Steel, our redo. It will be her helping with the battle to set this up, like who is this mystery woman? And then maybe, like I said, when he's traveling in London, he sees her. He sees her during the battle. Then he sees her at the end, maybe within the crowd of people that's applauding him, and after the battle with Zod, he sees her. Maybe we see him as a reporter now that he's going somewhere to have an interview, and that interview leads to Diana Prince, and that leads to the first Wonder Woman movie.
And the first Wonder Woman movie, heavily based upon the George Perez run, with hints at her developing feelings for Superman. I picked this because we could do the whole, we could adapt the whole sequence where she has a dream about Superman. And then it's like, so in other words, these two movies are basically setting up that they like each other, but really building on the friendship. Because as Britt and I have said in previous episodes, they have to work as friends first before you
Right.
put them together, because that's ultimately what they are. They're also really close friends.
Right. So with the Man of Steel ending, you have the post credit scene or something like that. He's walking into like a cafe, and that scene also is inspired by Wonder Woman Spirit of Truth
Mhm.
when they are in the cafe, and she's telling him, they're having this conversation about their basically how they view life, the man's world and stuff like that. So this is what you have. You have them in a cafe. He's about to interview who is Diana Prince, and she obviously know who he is, but he doesn't really. He kind of knows, kind of doesn't know who she is. So it's like once she's telling her story to him, he's like, "Oh, yeah, you're Wonder Woman." So, yeah, I think that that will be a good redo of her movie, but also I wouldn't have her movie set in the first uh, World War. I would have it still present day. So she will be that still her age. I think in Perez she was like 20 or 25.
Mhm.
So yeah, she will be in modern day. The only thing that I would change would be Steve. Well, I guess he could be. Um, I like the older version of him
Yeah, I
being
was
more
about to say you
of
could
a
do him
father
the way he.
figure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and essentially the way he was in the Perez run.
Yeah, it. I think that's just more. It, well, how Perez put it, it's kind of like she left her island for a man, and
Hmm.
that's something that Wonder Woman shouldn't do in the first place.
Yeah.
So that change was very. He can be young, and she leaves to even in New 52, she felt like she didn't have any romantic feelings for him. I think when the uh, secret origin
Hmm.
story, it was that she just saw him as a ticket, like a ticket out.
Hmm.
And I don't think that they had the competition, but I like the competition because it shows that she is so determined. So you
Hmm.
can have the competition. You
Hmm.
can have her, whether Steve is old or young. Um, he's her ticket out to explore the world. She does meet Etta,
Hmm.
and I would really. what they should have done, like I said, modern world with Julia and Vanessa. I think that that was so, especially with Julia, because she's such a mother figure outside of Hippolyta.
Yeah.
Like that, she needs those like female characters because she is such a female driven character herself. So her story isn't for Steve, her story is for women. So
H-
have her,
How
supporting.
you could use that to set up a conflict with Silver Swan.
Right. Yeah. As
And that's the thing. I hear so many times that, like, well, Wonder Woman movies are hard because she doesn't have a rogues gallery. She does. No one ever makes movies with these people.
no one ever, not even in the comics, do they actually explore what was set up. I like that it's a pro and a con. It's not just all around perfect with what George did, but he still set up such a rich, foundation. And despite what Burn Barn did for Superman, when like he just disregarded all of his Kryptonian, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
all of that, somebody could have brought that back, you know, and that this is how these two work so well together, especially when you have Perez, um, that not so much as the doe-eyed Wonder Woman, because Rucka tried bringing that back with his year one, and it just made it seem like she was stiff. You
Yeah.
know, you don't really want that either. You want this Wonder Woman to be curious, but still have this, I'll say, mature way about her, and especially with Clark too, because you want him to already have explored the world, and he's more mature too, and they both have this connection about their view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. And that one that works for me. And then we get the first Superman Wonder Woman movie. And then obviously with this would be pretty much straight up volume 1 of the new 52. So at this point you could even have it like the end of the Wonder Woman movie, they become a couple, and then this really fleshes that out. Now the thing about this, if we were adapting volume 1, my first thought when I was coming up with this list was, how do we deal with the Zod thing? So I thought Feora returns in the Phantom Zone, hellbent
Right.
on resurrecting Zod.
Yes, that's two minds think alike.
Oh,
Um,
wow, really?
yeah. So with the ending of Wonder Woman, after she tells her story, it is pretty much that yes, the gods are alive. And you have this where maybe Strife, she does something to where they have to team up, leave the cafe or whatever, and they have to team up and they see Feora, and they sort of, she gives them a warning, or gives Clark a warning that Zod will be coming back. So that does set up the third movie, which you see Clark and Diana trying to figure out, what does she mean by this? And they do explore, go out. I just really like it when they travel. I
Mhm.
don't like it. I just can't really wrap my head around these two characters that can be put into different places around the world, just set in one city. I
Yeah,
know
same
that
here.
I know that they can have a home base. Like Diana can be
Hmm.
in London, she can be in Washington sometimes. Um, Clark, he can be in Metropolis. It is it's supposed to be, the city of tomorrow and everything, but it seems so limiting for them. And I really would like, if Clark, him staying as a journalist, um, he should be like a foreign correspondent or something.
Mhm.
That he more so travels, and yes, the Daily Planet can be his, even his base, for his freelance or whatever, but he is mostly just out, for other cultures, and and especially with Diana, because she does humanitarian work, and that can also be in the movie, and that's something that was totally missing within the Wonder Woman movie. Yes, she was a fish out of water, but at the same time, Diana would explore and meet different people, and we just didn't see that, not even in what shall not be named, but has to be 1984. We didn't really see her with other people, with different cultures,
Real quick.
with
Why did you say that name?
I had to.
yeah, we didn't see that. And I think that that's what was missing from, the first movie was good in terms of setup and, just the action. I didn't particularly care for the romance because it just seemed like that was more focused, and she only knew him for like a week or so. So that's not really falling in love with somebody. So
Exactly.
that was just too much. But the
I agree.
overall point was good. But then of course it fell off on with 84, with again focusing mainly on Steve and the romance, which again Wonder Woman is not that. She is very much more of female driven, uh more with children. Now the mall scene, even though that was a little corny, you know, the
Oh my
mall
god.
scene was, it was good because she still interacted with a little girl, and that's
Mhm.
something that should be played out more. So with our, movies, within this third movie especially, I would really, really want for Clark and Diana especially to travel to these schools, to playgrounds, whether they are just Diana the ambassador, that too. They did not make her an ambassador, which I
I
just,
think they would have had, again, a lot of these things that we want to see probably would have happened had Zach not been sabotaged and like chopped off at the knees. That's
well,
that.
she was going to be queen, but
Mhm.
I don't know if she was going to be, well, with that, I think that it was that she was going to open the mascara
Yeah.
to the outside world. So maybe she would have been ambassador and queen, which I do agree with.
Mhm.
So yeah, the ambassador Diana Prince and the reporter Clark Kent goes to these different places, and it's having Clark. He's writing, and he's, I mean, 2013 when Man of Steel came out, you have, you know, people were into social media,
Yeah.
into Twitter and networking and stuff like that. So he can do this type of stuff and have a blog, a daily blog of their traveling. So yeah, that's I think that that's what the main core part of the third movie would be, with showing their civilian work, and then going into the, heavy battle with their heroics.
Yeah, and then also in this movie, and like maybe the first one, since we're doing Power Couple, I would keep the Doomsday thing, but again, not make Zod Doomsday. Just make it like he's breaking out of the Phantom Zone. Because actually, fun fact: in Man of Steel, there's a shot when we see Krypton where you see like the skyline and there's like a destroyed moon. According to Zach, that was the original Doomsday that did that. So I would keep that, and they just banished him to the Phantom Zone, and then he breaks out, and then we get the Wonder Woman versus Doomsday fight. So that's essentially the way I like pulled up, and I do agree with you 100%. We should see more of them interacting with like these civilian populace, because that's something we don't see a lot in superheroes.
Right.
Next up, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
Oh no.
Okay, but first, before we get to Batman versus Superman, I just want to put up a quick advertisement, because this the show gets a lot of clicks. Is that this channel is now monetized with memberships? We're finally
Wonderful.
there. This show is probably a major reason why, because this show gets a crap ton of views. Happy for that. But I just want to advertise, if you guys are so inclined, drop a join the the memberships. We have 3 tiers: Dark Knight, Green Lantern, and Justice League. For $1 a month, you get to be a member of our group chats. If for $3 a month, you get to, you get to get in all the group chats, but you also get to post a question, which will be read live on air on any of the shows it's appropriate for. Like if you have a Superman, Wonder Woman question, obviously we'll read it here. And finally, for the Justice League tier of $5 a month, you get the opportunity to participate in a members-only live stream where essentially we have the members on, we talk about stuff. It'll be really fun. So just if you're feeling so inclined, drop a membership. So back to our programming. I just wanted to throw that in there. All right. So Batman versus Superman. So the way I imagine it, so obviously we've already have an established cinematic universe before we get to BVS. In other words, we're not doing Warner Brothers and we're not rushing it. So at this point, Superman and Wonder Woman are known. Batman is doing Batman things. But in this one, this I would stick with. This I would take a lot of inspiration with the overall plot, and then Doomsday breaks out and fights Superman. Then we get like the scene in the Death of Superman animated movie where he talks to Wonder Woman and stuff. That was fine. You see, this scene right here that was depicted, this is fine when like Wonder Woman's bruised and beaten and she tells Clark, you can't hold back, otherwise we all die. And then Clark dies, obviously. And then Wonder Woman is so distraught about the loss, because remember, at this point, they're at the I love you phase, and then she resolves to bring him back.
Now that you brought that up, the one thing that I did notice in that movie is how contradictory the animated movie was. The whole trying to set up the Lois relationship, because
oh my gosh, yes,
he says, their relationship is built on so many lies, and you're romanticizing lies. And he says how she knows him, but with Diana, with that conversation that they had in the training room, it was like she knew, how he does lie, how she does know him. She does know him, and he's trying to have this relationship with somebody else that is pretty much like you would rather stay in this kind of comfort zone, or, well, honestly, the way that they broke them up was never explained, and it doesn't make sense
Britt,
anyway.
I cannot. When I was watching the marketing for this movie and it was heavily Clois, I was like, what the hell just happened? They were together in the previous movie. And then when I find out it was an off-screen, this is my biggest issue with this cinematic universe. They did too much crap off-screen. At least show it if you're going to break them up.
Right. And so with that, he's saying, Lois, she's with both personas. She's with Clark and Superman. So I'm kind of like, well, even with the glasses, when it was the reveal, it was so just
forced.
Yes. I mean, he just took the glasses off. That was it. And it was like, oh,
he didn't even heat up her coffee or anything like that. He's just, I'm Superman.
Yeah, that was it. And also within the battle, Lois was like, you can't go down there, you'll be killed or something like that. And she was basically trying to tell him to, like, no, don't go. And it's kind of like, okay, this monster or whatever is terrorizing the city, and you tell him not to go. This is what he's supposed to do.
He's a superhero. You're dating a superhero.
But Diana tells him, you can't hold back. You have to do this. You have to stop him. And it's kind of like, well, wow, you want to make it seem like Diana's relationship with him was bad, or whatever you was trying to make it out to be, but she's the one that's motivating him to do what he needs to do, while Lois is selfishly telling him, let others handle it, let them do it,
when she
and
knows that they
you just
obviously
stay with
can't.
me.
Plus, here's the thing, though: if we did it this way with our universe, which would totally do better, essentially with factoring in Man of Steel with him killing Zod, we could have a thing where after killing Zod, he resolves to not kill anymore. And then you get this moment where Wonder Woman goes, "You have to break your vow, otherwise we all die."
Right. That is another thing that I really it should be explored more, because it's such a hypocritical type, you know, um, stance. Because when you have monsters, when you have just, these villains that can't be redeemed, at some point, yeah, they have to be killed. So you have to make that decision. And
My favorite is I got into a debate with someone over the Man of Steel killing Zod thing, and they go, "Well, he should have taken Zod into custody." Okay, what are they going to do? They don't have kryptonite yet. How are you going to hold a Kryptonian?
I mean, even in the Phantom Zone, they can obviously break out. So it's like you have to make that snap, you know, decision, and that is something that they will get through together. You will get traumatized by it, but that is something that has to be done, and that's
Exactly.
the sacrifices or the decisions as a hero that you have to make. And this all, with all three movies that we've, talked about right now, it's these little moments within them, building up a relationship, civilian wise and heroic, and you see the differences that they have, the views, and also, um, the similarities they have of, how do we handle these situations in our civilian persona and our heroic persona. And that's something that definitely should be explored, not only in, uh, our hypothetical cinematic universe, but also for real in the comics and in the, movies, especially if they want to do something different with how James Gunn is trying to do. It's kind of like, if you say you're going to do something different, then do something different and have this. It's all right there within the comics. Our
Yeah, the
hypothetical.
minute he told me that, okay, this is gonna be different from any Superman movie we've ever seen. Okay, we're gonna have him with Lois Lane. Hello.
Right. It's like, okay, all these different narratives, um, you know, are in the comics. If you are trying to, you say that you want, comics to be read, to have new fans. Well, give us you know, different stories within those then. Adapt something different than what we already know. And that's what it feels like. It feels like, Gunn will just kind of redo a movie from from 40 years ago. Um, but back to our movies, I just think that, with the romance too, like we said, you start off with them as friends, that little mystery. Then within the second movie, you do start to have like this, um, flirtatious type thing, and then within the third movie, you have them very much in a, uh, best friends, but I really do like you phase. And then by the end of the third movie, going into this, fourth movie, you have especially the part of the dying, is yeah, I really do like you and I love you phase. And I think that will balance that out.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, before I move on, I just want to. I probably should have clarified this before. I assume we are keeping the entire Snyder cast in terms of who plays who.
Right. Yeah.
Good. Just want to make sure because I think another criminal thing that we lost is we never got to see Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill like interact, and I think that they would do really well in this type of situation. So now we get another Superman and Wonder Woman movie. Now this is the one time I'm going to adapt a Tomasi thing.
Right.
I would bring in the scene where I don't know why this pop-up showed up, where she takes his, so he's dead now because of the Doomsday fight. She takes his body to the gods and essentially goes, I'm holding the man I love in my arms. Give me your damn answer and heal him. You get that whole little dream sequence where like he has to continually prove that he's worthy of Diana.
Yes.
And again, because I may not have liked a lot of what Tomasi did, but this part was actually solid.
He had his moments. This moment was really good because he within this his tests of again, yeah, pull in the gods because they have you've already dealt with his, roles of Zod. So yeah, pull in the gods with Diana's part. And that whole sequence of um it was Artemis, it was Strife, it was Hephaestus and Apollo. And was it Apollo? I
I
think
believe
he was in
Apollo.
it.
I think Apollo was involved.
Um
It's
or
whoever the
Hermes.
hell this guy is. It's not a. I don't think it's Apollo because I don't think Apollo would help Superman after he punched him through a volcano.
Well, that's true. And your biggest and last test is with arrows. And that one was really I didn't like that he made it seem like Diana lied within that story. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, the whole conflict, I
Mm.
mean, Tomasi's conflicts was so contradictory and just didn't make any sense for them as a couple. But you have to turn off your brain and just, I
I'm
mean,
like, wait a second. So you're upset that Diana's using the lasso of truth on people? That's what she does.
right. It just,
What the hell is going on? That's the biggest thing. He either inserted trauma where there wasn't with the whole God of War thing, or got Clark upset about the littlest things.
yes. I mean, but the thing is, what Tomasi said was he wanted to do different from what Charles had set up. And he said, I remember the tweet, no conflict, no story. And it's like, okay, honestly, the conflict has to make sense to the couple, and the conflict has to, you know, make sense to
And it
us as
didn't.
the
So there you
reader.
go.
Um, and he didn't really have a story because the story that he was telling just didn't resonate with the fan base. It didn't. It just seemed like we were reading total different characters from what Charles set up, and I just that's why the third, fourth, and fifth volumes I kind of just disregard,
The
except for
third one
some
was
pages.
okay. I'll get except for the scene where he puts drama, where he makes Wonder Woman, where he puts like tension in the whole "You're strong, I know" moment.
Yeah,
Besides that, it wasn't that bad. 4 and 5 were complete. I was like, oh god.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it's still some moments that he has that I would use. I would sometimes post. Um, or reference back to. So yeah, this moment with the gods and the whole sequence of him being tested was very good to use, especially because it showed again the Clark persona and the Superman persona, and it pulled them both together at the end, especially with Eros. like asking and wondering, um, are you gonna, you know, his smothered desire, or
I love
that
that one.
deep, you know, do you want to marry her? And it's like, yeah, you do. I know you do.
Yeah, dude. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
dude. You wouldn't have gone through all this BS with her if you didn't want to marry this woman.
yeah. So both, and it showed that both sides of him basically says, yes, I want to marry her. So that part, yes, I would include that.
Yeah, because and again, it's also because Wonder Woman arguing for her lover. And the thing about this, that was my one problem with the Wonder Woman movie when they killed all of the gods. I'm like, you do realize that these are very essential, characters in the Wonder Woman world, right?
Right. Even when it's not, like, when she had her clay origin, they still, have this role. Um, wh- I I like both origins because with the Zeus origin, you get a lot of drama. You get
Plus,
this
plus it's
whole,
Zeus. It makes sense.
yeah, you get this whole like family dysfunction, and it's something that seems so out of place, but so real too for us as readers because we understand that, family drama, family dysfunctions, and then but you have it in this bombastic type, superhero world. So yeah, I would want the gods to be like the new 52 versions, but even if they wanted to be ambiguous with her birth like they did, and
Hmm.
it's like she still had the clay origin, still use that as I like that, every god had a hand in her birth,
Yeah,
you know,
I do
for her
like
to
that.
have her powers. So yeah, I definitely like either way, I'm 50-50 on it. But yeah, you do need the gods within her story because if she's fighting Ares, if she's communicating or um anything like that with Hermes, if she needs to have a moment with Aphrodite, with Hera especially, the honestly, I don't like it that they make Hera a villainess,
Hmm.
because I mean, yeah, Zeus is a Rolling Stone type, you know,
That's
he,
an understatement.
yeah, but still, you get why she's a scorned goddess, but at the same time, she is the, mother of the gods. And so, with her and Diana's supposed to have like this motherly type, persona too, that interaction will be good. But again, missed opportunities of killing all of them, which I still, you know, don't understand that because, I mean, the first killing them, and I don't really agree with making them or just Zeus like half Kryptonian or something like that, whatever that was supposed to
Hmm.
be. I don't really agree with that because that's the scientific and the mythical, distinction. So having that, taking that out, the mythical part, I don't agree with. But everything else, is pretty okay.
But again, that was a rejected idea.
Yeah,
That's the key thing that I keep reminding people on X or Twitter or however the hell people want me to refer to it
yeah.
now is
Twitter
that
X.
yeah, exactly, is that it gives Zach so much heat for ideas that he didn't use. That's the key thing there. Who cares if he thought about it? He was like, yeah, that doesn't work. Throw it out. There you
I
go.
mean, right. I mean, that's what pitches are. When you pitch an idea, it is going to say, yay or nay. And so it's kind of like you're just throwing things out there. When we when these movies or whatever are like, it can be 5 years of this idea floating around before it actually um become like the solid idea or whatever that they are about to start filming. It's a whole process. So they go through tons of drafts, they go through tons of ideas, tons of castings and this kind of thing. So yeah, getting mad over an idea that didn't come into uh wasn't adapted. No, you don't do that. We can talk about it. We can agree or disagree about it. Yeah, about it.
Oh, okay.
But don't get mad. Don't get mad about it. Just have fun talking about it.
Well, then real DC fans and fun don't exactly go side by side. But for some reason it wasn't the PowerPoint, but the rest of it is I would keep the majority of Zach's like overall plan with like Darkseid and the invasion and stuff, except obviously center it around Wonder Woman instead of Lois being the factor that turns them. Or you could do where she doesn't die, he gets turned by the anti-life equation. Then Wonder Woman has that moment where she wraps him in the lasso of truth, and then that finally like breaks Darkseid's hold on him.
Yes, that scene, we talked about it last week of Wonder Woman, what was it? 171, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
Or yeah. That scene of her wrapping the lasso around him and, bringing him back to his sanity, that is what the lasso is supposed to do. So, I mean, to nerf it for Lois to have a part in it, it made it more so kind of like he's a sort of like a lapdog or something, that needed to be tamed. And
Yeah.
and he can only be tamed by the love interest. And no, and that's why I prefer that they build on Clark and Diana's relationship as friends first. It's just
Oh yeah.
friends, best friends, especially the best friends part, that they understand each other before any type of romance. And then, because that's the foundation of any relationship in general, you have to be friends first. And that is what, you know, makes their bond even stronger. So, no, it's not just a romantic partner that he has helping him within the when she uses the lasso. It's also his best friend, helping him through the lasso.
Exactly. And the scene that came to mind was this when he's like basically turned it into a like the god of strength in Darkseid War, and she uses the lasso to kind of like snap out of it saying you need my love, and then there you go.
Yes. See, they have so many moments in the comics. It's like those moments are so powerful. Adapting them would make the audience even more invested in the characters. When you try to change, these ideas from the comics, the dynamics, or just ignore that whole thing, that's pretty much it's entertaining. Some adaptations like Halle Berry's, Catwoman is totally
Uh,
it's totally just off, you know, it's campy and stuff like that. But because of her as an actress, you just look at her as the actress. You don't really, and she kind of have the essence of Catwoman, so it can, it can pass. It can be
gosh.
a little interesting.
All right, Britt,
Um,
you're making me play this again.
Why did you say that name?
I mean, it's true. They do have these movies that it's just kind of like, why was it even filmed? Why was it even, put money into it? But the idea is sometimes there and it could have been better. I mean, especially with the Catwoman movie, it could have been much better. But we have to think of the time that it was made in. Now, if it was made within 2023, then yeah, that's just totally, no.
Because there's no way they'll release a subpar movie in 2023. Wait. But the thing is, and a comic historian actually has a fantastic take on this, is that you can't expect these movies to be 100% like comic accurate, because there's stuff that's not going to translate over, and you have to treat it like these are different versions. You could not enjoy the version, but people saying like necessarily that's not that character, that's not my Superman, not my whatever. The thing is, like, yeah, that's fine. You don't enjoy the version, but if it has the DC logo on it, guess what? That's the official version. When people say like the man is Zack Snyder's Superman is not Superman, I always say it has the DC logo on it. It is Superman. I'm sorry, that's just the way this works.
Right. You have the characters at their core. Just keep that core value and the basics. But anything else that still put the characters in a positive light, and you can tip the line just a little bit to put them in a risky situation. As long as you have those core values still at play, then any iteration of the character, you can accept.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna play this real quick. I'm not gonna play with sound because I don't want to get a copyright ding. But this is one of the scenes where I thought that like Zack Snyder nailed Superman, because you have all this is from BVS. You have all these people like critiquing Superman and like talking about he could be a threat or anything like that. But what Zack keeps interspersing is the clips of Superman saving people and continuing to do his job, because ultimately the core Superman, he doesn't care what you think about him. No matter what, he is going to keep saving people, even if you don't like him.
Right. I think, and I think there was well, the main movie that pretty much goes within that is Kingdom Come. I mean,
Yeah.
he does give up because humanity turned their backs on him, but at the same time, he still knew, with the help of Diana, of course, to push him to be who he supposed to be. It still was there. Is that at his core, he still was that same Clark. It just, it was just at his lowest point. But he never turned evil or anything like that. He
Yeah, Tom
never
Taylor.
he never or NetherRealm,
Oh
injustice.
yeah.
Yeah, he never really strayed away too far from who he was too much. So yeah, you can, like I said, you can tip the line just a little bit, but at the end, he became who he has always been. And that's what makes a good story and a full circle story. So
And
that is
that's
what, uh-huh.
the thing about it. That's why I think the new 52 and the SnyderVerse did really well. They still gave you the core of who these characters were. It's just they just sort of like adapted them to be told in a modern context. That's why I maintain Man of Steel is still telling the exact same story as Superman 78. It's just is doing it in a using modern storytelling instead of keeping everything like, oh, gee willikers, Superman.
Right. New 52 Superman was a modern day golden age
Yeah.
Superman. He was the OG, so to reject New 52 is basically you rejecting the, the true classic. I think that a lot of people think classic is 1986 post-crisis, but it's not, you know.
But what's funny is when people say they like the post-crisis Superman, I was like, did you see how dark that guy gets? Hello. That's why I always tell people, if you look at Man of Steel, that's post-crisis / new 52 Superman merged into one.
Right. That's basically what he is. I would say that he's more, very much so, more leaning on post-crisis. New 52, I think that the realism, the
Yeah, that's true.
realism is what, and in his suit, you know, being that he has his underwear on the inside. But that's pretty much it from New 52 that I would say Cavill's Superman had, but everything else was pretty much post-crisis. And so it's kind of like, well, that's even more so you reject Cavill's post-crisis Superman, but you praise the comic post-crisis.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know, and I'm like, it's literally the exact same guy.
same thing. Yeah.
It's like if you read, it's like, it's kind of funny if you read John Byrne's Man of Steel miniseries, it's pretty much the Man of Steel movie. I mean, it even starts off on Krypton. The ship lands. Before the ship lands, yeah, cut to him being an adult, learning his Superman powers. He even has a moment where he like walks away from humanity because he's not sure if he can be the hero they need him to be, a la BVS. And I'm like, literally, people, all the this is why a lot of like real DC fans, and I'll explain this in a second. They complain about him, not about Zach, like not reading comics, but yet they ignore this. It's like the thing about it. The reason why I do this is because, and again, Britt and I had a conversation about this. The fact that there was now being articles coming out that like a lot of the comics Twitter audience don't read the comics. Now they're openly admitting it.
Yes. I mean, they've been openly admitting this for a very long time. It's just that now that the industry, I think, is getting worse with sales being not as, at first it was New 52 rejuvenated the whole industry because, and we see this in the DC documentary,
Mhm.
is that uh, the Dark Knight movies was so successful, but the comics were just in the gutter.
Mhm.
So they needed this boost. And it was like, if WB, I think, was basically like, if you don't, do something about this, then we'll shut the whole comics division down. So, yeah, while New 52 was very flawed, and it seemed like they didn't have a plan because it was rush with WB putting them basically on a time, and they had to do something. And that's what fans, especially on Twitter, they feel like they know everything, and they know business. Like, all of a sudden they have like a business degree and know this certain, uh how things go. But no, if you watch the documentary, which obviously they have ignored, um, even with retailers saying New 52 basically saved us, is like, well, no, it was bad because I didn't like it. Yeah, you might have not liked it, but it still helped. And then you
And that's the
have,
thing. The what really surprised me about the documentary is that people will be like, "Well, Rebirth really revitalized DC," and I'm like, "Then how come it wasn't even mentioned by not once was the word Rebirth mentioned in that documentary?" That astounded me because I was tensing up because they were talking about the new 52. Then I was afraid that they were going to say, "Well, we realized that wasn't the way to go, so we did Rebirth." They just left that, and I was like, wow.
right. When I was so surprised that it just went straight to from New 52 to the gaming. And it was like, you know, well, retailers have already said that New 52 outsold um Rebirth.
Oh
That
yeah.
I mean, you went through the lowest point of, it wasn't even New 52 anymore. It was DCU and Convergence, which
Uh,
which pretty much ruined the momentum. It was already kind of going down, but it
It was
stayed at a
recoverable. It was that's the thing. It was
right.
recoverable pre-convergence. Once convergence hit, it was like, no, that's done. And that's the thing. What I always tell people, okay, let's examine the new 52 sort purpose. Okay, it was supposed to revitalize the comic industry and get sales up. It did. It was supposed to bring up a massive amount of fans. It did. I am one of them. So in that way, I always tell people, so it didn't fail. It fulfilled its purpose. Now, if it wasn't properly managed later, that's another thing. But it didn't fail whatsoever. That's the thing there.
Yes, the management was very much, yeah, we all know. I mean, even uh Dan, he even says it, sometimes he would have done some things a little bit different, but he mostly, from the interview he had when he left DC, it was kind of like he pretty much seemed like he was throwing rebirth under the rug, because it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like, some things he wouldn't have done, especially with bringing back the marriage. He basically said that it was like some stuff he wouldn't have brought back, some stuff it just didn't
Well,
need to be, because he saw, I think before he left, he saw that sales remain basically at a flat rate. And they even said that. And that's why at some points, New 52 has been brought up again, because yes, it was controversial, it was flawed, but it did bring in conversation. It did bring in new
that's what you
fans.
want. And that's what I always tell people about with the Snyder movies. And again, I say this every week. It's astounding how much this intersects. But the thing I always bring up is the fact that we're still talking about Man of Steel 10 years later. We're still talking about BVS 10 years later. That is a really good thing if your stuff can keep people talking years and years and years. Hell, we still talk about the new 52 all the time. Hell, this entire podcast, it was based around a concept that was heavily like canonized by the new 52.
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole fan base that's still growing. You have this, even with the people who complain on Twitter. I mean, you bring it up, if nobody liked it, how they say, if nobody accepted it, you were speaking negatively on it, but I'm seeing more and more people are pretty much like neutral. And it's like, well, actually, I am curious about it. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, because what you thought was good within bringing back this status quo. And the thing is, the status quo that they wanted so bad was the reason why they had to reboot in the first place.
I know, and that's the astounding thing. When I did the but new 52 failed video, and again, you were my major source for that video, so props to you. When you brought up
Thank you.
that Dan Didio was basically like, we ended up going back to the exact state we were at before the reboot that necessitated the reboot. So I'm like, okay, DC, make up your mind. If you want to stay with that, fine. But the other issue DC did is that they also tried to keep some of the new 52, because they could have just used Superman Reborn as a like reboot and just wiped it all away. But no, they tried to keep parts of the new 52 and parts of pre-new 52. So I'm like, this is literally one of the issues people had with the new 52. They tried to keep previous continuity, and yes, that was a weakness. So I'm like, make up your mind, DC. You can't have it both ways, or you can and use the universe that Jay Heat and I created with the new Direction verse.
But the thing is, with the things that they kept, you notice that it was stuff that kind of like didn't bring too much conversation, or it didn't
No,
really sell much. So it's kind of like that was okay. But the main thing that they, let go was the Superman and Wonder Woman relationship, because that was a pretty much the main focus. That was it was their way of saying that this is, we are bringing back the old. But at the same time, the old is not pretty much not really talked about. I mean, the Superman books, when Dan Jargens took over action, it was just around like what 70K,
Hmm.
and it pretty much dropped from there. Um, the Superman book, I think the only thing that Tomasi had was kind of like the first 6 issues, first volume, and then after that, especially when they finished their whole drag New 52 through the mud thing,
Hmm.
there was no more story. You know, they were, it's kind of like everything was just flat. Even with Wonder Woman,
Hmm.
Rucka, he had 25 issues, and with 25 issues, it was again eliminating New 52, saying that everything was a lie, and saying that, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, 10 years of living a lie, 10 years of hallucinating. So where does she go? What was she doing within these 10 years? How did that not affect other people then? Other people
Or
that
it's
she was
like,
around.
being with Clark was too easy. Since when? Wait a second here. The government formed a Justice League team because you were together in case you turned evil. How is that easy? Nothing
The
about this
world,
relationship was easy.
the whole world's reaction, they were like this celebrity. They were already celebrities, but now you have this celebrity, essentially this celebrity couple, within the public eye. I have no idea how that could be easy when what's easy is the traditional status quos. Because you know what's going to happen. They are so predictable. Steve, he's going to die at some point. He's going to end up being in the background, irrelevant or something like that. Or
He's
he's
always been
just,
irrelevant. That's the thing.
yeah. So that relationship has never had any solid base with Lois and Clark. It is very much a save. I'm gonna You're gonna get into trouble. I'm gonna save you, or they have like gloss over conflict and pretty much no conflict. And that's another thing too that Tomasi um was being hypocritical on, is that the conflict, he didn't really do that with them. So how can you say no conflict, no story for Superman and Wonder Woman, and say that their relationship that Charles set up was like, I think he said picnics and rainbows, but that's exactly what you did with Rebirth, with
Yeah, with Lois
that.
Lane, I'm like, wait. For one thing, my problem with the Lois relationship, beyond the fact that Lois is a generally unlikable character, I've said this before, is that I was reading War World, she was in danger, and I go, he's gonna save her. So, because to a certain degree, I get there are certain like principles you want to adhere to with the character, but to a certain degree, from a writing standpoint, it's bad writing when there are literally, you want to talk about zero stakes. If I know Superman is going to save Lois Lane, why should I care whenever she's in danger? And second of all, Tomasi, to tell me you didn't read what Charles Sewell did without telling me you didn't read what Charles Sewell did, because that's exactly what that's saying. If you didn't think that what they put in there was, oh my gosh, it's that there was basically that statement that he gave me 100% confirmed that he didn't read the previous issues to prepare. It's all like, no, get rid of this.
Yeah, even the cover art for volume 3, it was um the artist actually shared, and they were way more intimate. It was one that was really good, and it had Diana with her sword, and Clark, I think he was behind her and kind of like embracing her, and it seemed very angsty kind of, but romantic at the same time.
Yeah.
And that, and I will have to find those to show you. But yeah, those were rejected. And he just wanted them to stand there like just as a team up book. And I think that it was also one of the a person actually tweeted that they talked to Tomasi, and he basically told them that he was going to make the book be more team up than romantic. And it's like, why would you do that
And I'm
when
like,
it
you
has
realize you're in the new 52, and the poster child of the new 52 is this relationship, and you're going to go, it's more of a team up. What the hell?
so now you have the book, basically the audience that it has. You are you are trying to cater to an audience that does not care for the book. They don't, I mean, they care for the book because they bought it too, obviously with the
Not
sales
here's the
it had.
thing though. Not this is whenever anyone tells me, because there's this one Wonder Woman account that really annoys the ever living out of me, Brit. I'm not going to say it on screen on camera because I really don't want to encourage drama. I'll tell you off screen. But there's this one account that kept calling Superman and Wonder Woman boring, and like how they told me it didn't sell well. And I'm like, what numbers are you looking at? Because actually, that sold well than anything Wonder Woman was doing previously, and whatever Superman did afterwards. So, if anything, because here's my problem, Britt. I was in another like Discord group with like a lot of like DC AU fans, and these people are rabid. But the thing is, is that they basically told me that it shouldn't operate as a business. The money shouldn't matter, and I'm like, it's DC is a business. DC has to act like a business. Ideally, they have to act about making money, not what their own personal preferences are. Because here's the thing: eliminating the new 52 for the purpose of not because of sales, but because of what they wanted to go away with the character. That right there is telling them we don't care what the fans want. We only care about what we want. And I'm sorry, that is not the way an entertainment company should act.
And especially if the revenue is, I mean, it's really showing that if you are pandering to a certain group, especially a loud group that has admitted that they don't support the books, that they don't, um, there's a meme going around for DC, is DC fans on Twitter for the movieverse. DC fans on Twitter, it's a whole big old crowd,
Oh yeah, and then
But
the one below is like an empty movie theater.
right, yeah, that is basically just anything DC has right now, whether it is their animation TV shows, whether it is their live action TV shows, the comics, the movies. That meme just uh really defines DC right now. But New 52, um, like I said, it was controversial, but it did bring the curiosity. The
Same thing with SnyderVerse. The hell, my mom when she saw Man of Steel was like, Jared, I think I want to learn more about DC, and that's the thing about that I was on a channel with a buddy. He's like one of those DC purists, but he's willing to have a nice conversation, so I'm fine with that. And I told him, here's what you have to understand about these characters, about these adaptations. You may not like them, but what you have to understand is that when the general audience latches on to these versions, which they clearly did with like the SnyderVerse or even the new 52 on the comic side, you have to start treating these like gateways into these characters. Because what I did is essentially when I got in with the new 52, I wanted to go back and read more of Superman's history. So most of my collection of Superman is pre-new 52 stuff that I happen to like. And that's the thing, because when you start coming in and seeing these versions of these characters that you like Man of Steel or BVS or like Superman 78, what have you, you then go, okay, you know what? I want to learn more about this character. So I'm going to go back and read the other stuff. I'm going to get an entire education about Superman, and that's how you build a fan base, not by yelling at someone and calling them not a real fan if they like a version that you don't necessarily like.
Yeah, I mean, that was essentially what the idea of New 52 and SnyderVerse was. It was to bring in new fans, the casual fans, to become the, more stable, permanent fans. They, like I said, they are flawed. They are controversial. But they also take risks. So
Mhm.
you can have this more hyped up type, you know, oh my God, what's going to happen next? This conversation, whether it's a fandom war type conversation or an exciting conversation, it's still conversation. And that's something that DC doesn't have. Right now, I see, just these kind of like, they are bringing back, like, talking about Superman and Wonder Woman to at least get some type of upheaval, some type of conversation going. Even with the Snyderverse and Cavill gone, you still see those tweets and stuff that's saying Man of Steel was the worst, Cavill, deserved what he got. It was, just things like that. And you have that back and forth. That's what people want. They want, because they're so bored with what they have now. You have a new Superman, whether with the strikes, it might be pushed back, you know. Um,
Honestly,
it
at this
might,
point, Britt, I don't think this movie comes out. With everything going on with DC, Warner Brothers. We talked about on the news show last night. Warner Brothers like losing money at an astounding degree. They're probably gonna. Honestly, what I think that DC should do, go back to just doing one-off movies. Stop with this shared universe thing. You've demonstrated that for right now, you're not capable of doing it. Go
they
back to
aren't
when
capable.
they're capable, but they keep sabotaging the people that are capable. Because remember, Snyder was building to something, and then they like cut it off. Honestly, right now, my whole thing is just because the most DC success ever had was when they were doing standard one-off movies, and then if it gets successful, then you build. Don't go in there expecting to build a universe. You have to wait and see how the audience responds, not how you respond.
Right. That is the one thing that they keep doing, is having this reactionary response. And when BVS just really went off the rails with the controversy, I mean, it, you still had a chance to kind of re rework a little bit. Just like, okay, this idea wasn't working too well, so let's do it a little bit different. But as we could see that the Snyder cut, you know, it was better than what WB, tried to have.
And that's what
But
people wanted. And the other thing is, if you look at let's say they didn't want to go more with what Snyder wanted, and they thought that Justice League was going to bomb. If you look at the way the Snyder cut ends, it ends very open-ended. So if they wanted to go in a different direction, they just have Man of Steel 2, Superman puts back on the blue suit, good to go. They go in the new direction. If they had just released the Snyder cut, or like granted a cut down version, because no way they're releasing a 4-hour movie in theaters. But
right,
the thing is, if they had released it, again, if they wanted to go in a different direction, fine. I think Zach would have been vindicated, but that's just me.
I think that they could have, yeah, done that, and then transition to The Rock's plan. I
Hmm?
really, really, really believe that his plan would have saved, you know, this whole, it would have saved a lot, because while Black Adam, it it wasn't the best of movies, but it did,
I
you
enjoyed it.
know, yeah, it was enjoyable. and it actually is the movie as of now as the most profitable, or um right now for DC. and
Mhm.
and the fact that he did bring back Cavill, I mean, he actually listened to the fans, and whatever behind the scenes was going on, he fought for Cavill to come back, and he won the the faith back in the fans because he did what the fans asked.
Yeah,
So
and he even said, okay, so I said this last week. It's like with Black Adam, where he goes, okay, so the Black Adam is the most powerful being on Earth. Between you and me, he's not, but I'm just going to go off of this. And then he goes for Superman. The most powerful being in the universe has been on the sidelines for too damn long. And I'm like, thank you. Someone said it.
yeah, he was setting up for Cavill Superman to be front and center. And that planning, this whole plan that he had, they could have done it, and they could have won uh the fans that felt, you know, betrayed or anything like that. They could have won them back and more with that idea, especially adapting, in a way of Kingdom Come, because that is the main story of DC. That is the story that has brought fans in. Even now, that
I
is
mean,
a
hell, before
story.
they did the multiverse, before they brought back the multiverse, that was the future of DC.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much that should be the future of DC. It makes sense. It is like the holy grail, pretty much, of futures, because, like I said, it makes sense. It does it pretty much put the characters where they should be, and it has a beginning, and it has an infinite end. But you can also, it has enough room to build on, especially with Clark and Diana's kids. You know, it's a whole world that can be explored and that people will want to know more about.
Speaking
But
of that, it's like one of the things I forgot to mention previously about my Justice League plans is that Justice League 2, the only modification I would add is Justice League 2 brings in Superman and Wonder Woman getting married and then having John and Laura, so we can then have them in Justice League 3. Because say what you want about Frank Miller and his universe for DC, but those were very, very, very interesting characters that I think could fit, and not only the Snyderverse, but also just in DC in general.
yet those kids have so much potential, especially Laura. No, both of them do. Laura is, she's, we're being hidden away, in that type of environment that basically this world is against me, and I'm pretty much a just won't be accepted, and especially at that young age of feeling that, she would resonate with teens today, so
Yeah, like I
having
don't
her.
know what I want to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in life. Every
Yeah,
teenager goes through that.
right. So you have this, especially a girl, you have this character that's so rich with this type of questioning, and then she's a superhero too. So once she go goes through her journey, and you can see this girl with superpowers, you know, it can truly have younger girls, in reality, feel what she feel and feel like they can be, go through whatever journey they need to go through, how she goes through it. And then Jonathan, he's a 3 to 4 year old um anime character, which
I love how you describe that 3 to 4 year old anime character.
he's a, well, what they call him was a baby Buddha. and he's basically got like psychic powers. And the reason why I call him an anime character, because it is an anime called Psyche K, and he, as being a baby, he had his psychic powers. So I think that that is who John was inspired by, and it fits. It fits so much with being a child of Superman and Wonder Woman, because he is your mother is a mythical, character, magic with the gods, and then your father is this scientific character, and you blend that together, and you have like this unpredictable, like, what kind of powers would this kid have?
Oh,
Eh,
and he was stacked in Golden Child.
Yes, the nuclear heat vision. It was like, okay, it's not just an ordinary heat vision, it's nuclear. And he was so, and I think he had telepathy too,
Something like that.
and telekinesis. But it's like you can do so much with this. I mean, having a 3 or 4 year old that speaks, that
That's
is
articulate and everything
articulate.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that is something DC does not have. You and I mean, you have a, like, I keep saying it, but a 3 or 4 year old that could basically, I think Frank Miller said he was the strongest in the universe.
Oh
So it's
yeah,
like,
100%. You definitely communicate that in Golden Child, my friend.
so yeah, these ideas are right there, that is just basically screaming to be explored. And you can do so much. I know that in the main books now in Action Comics, the Action Comics writer has brought in these two twins that
Do you know why they did that, Britt? They did that because they want to go back to having young John, but they don't want to take away the LGBTQ icon. So, like, how do we do that? Let's have Superman adopt 2 more Kryptonian kids.
But the thing is, they actually are supposed to be a little bit different than regular, than the Kryptonians, but they are so bland and they don't really stand out. They are just
Hmm.
replacements for John, but John is just as bland.
Hmm.
So, I mean, even as a LG BT character, that is something that's supposed to resonate. It's not just being in the relationship, it's something that's supposed to be explored with much more realness, much more heart and feelings. And I think that, well, Tom Taylor did, um, he did admit that it was a stunt. He did.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, oh, we all know that, dude.
Right. I mean, for them to call Superman and Wonder Woman a stunt, which, no, that was actually the sincerity of the New 52 change and
Hell,
status
you could
quo.
say the entire Rebirth initiative was stunt.
Right. Now that was a stunt, and then this was a stunt. And it's kind of like, why would you do that? Why would you play on you know, how reality is that this is a serious, topic. This is a serious uh, change in someone's orientation, and you are basically just using it for uh, just.
My
I
other
mean,
issue,
the book didn't even,
mhm,
it skyrocketed. John's book skyrocketed that one issue. I think it
because the
sold,
collectors.
yeah, because of the collectors, but then it dropped drastically right back down. So you
Yeah,
got a quick, you got a quick buck or whatever, but you didn't really emphasize on that importance. And now he's just this, he's not really an icon either. He isn't. He
they try
is,
to make him one by calling him Superman, but he's not. He's Superboy. The other thing about John Kent that I really didn't like is when they did this whole thing where he's about to come out to his father and he's really nervous and everything. What if father won't accept me? And from a reader's perspective, I'm like, Tom Taylor, he's Superman. Okay, he works with LGBT characters. I'm pretty sure he's fine. So it's I get that people go through that in real life, But again, this is my thing about how some things won't translate well, particularly when you're dealing with Superman, who is literally the most accepting person in the world. I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
Quite honestly, I mean, with that, I would have just like had him just be himself, and it would have been more impactful and just more
Yeah.
real, especially for Clark was just like, oh, okay, you know, it was just like a, or he didn't even have a reaction in the sense that he just felt that it was
Because he
normal.
wouldn't. Just have him be his regular self. Have him be bi. I really don't care. But just have Clark would see that and go, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, he really wouldn't have a reaction at all. It would just be a normal reaction of a parent, um, pretty much giving you dating advice or a parent meeting your significant other, just you know,
Well,
just
not only
as
that,
normal. That's
according to
it.
DC, his best friend is LGBTQ with Wonder Woman. So I'm like, you really don't think this would work out? Well, beyond the fact that I disagree with Rocco when he tried to say that Wonder Woman was bi, because everyone there, from a familial perspective, even if they're not blood related, is her sister. And I get that Greek myths that in Greek myths that type of stuff wasn't frowned upon. But and this is where I get into the hypocrisy of real DC fans. I'm like, you'll complain and say that they want this because it was with Greek myths, but when Azzarello gives you the actual accurate origins for the Amazons, you throw a hissy fit. What?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I see the Amazons more as, yeah, they are her sisters, they are aunts, and they are also second mothers.
Yeah,
So
that's why
it's
it doesn't
especially,
work.
yeah, so if she's the only child, that wouldn't work. But if she is um not the only child like she was in New 52, then I would basically say that Diana is I mean, she really doesn't care about, she doesn't see orientation. She just accepts everyone because yeah,
Yeah.
she is from an island of women. So to her, it was in Sensation Comics. She was like, and she was talking to Clark, and she's like, marriage is marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I was about to say. She's like, there's no gay marriage. It's just marriage.
Yeah, in relationships, uh, is beautiful to her. Life and love is beautiful to her. That's what she loves is love. So any type of uh, trying to make it a thing, it just seems so like you are trying to get Twitter brownie points or um, trying to get like in the news or something like that, and it's not natural. And again, that's not helping the characters. These characters have been around for 80 plus years, but it feels like sometimes that's all it has been, is that they've just been around, but they haven't really made the impact that they should have at some points. Wonder Woman, she's the first female superhero, but her comic sales aren't that good. um
It's because
un-
for her supposed importance to DC, they don't put top tier talent on her.
and the thing is, again, Kingdom Come, it made her important. Why? Because she was the moral compass for Clark. She was that, the second in command. She was that, uh the one that pulled pretty much, even when she was going through her own stuff, she still pulled everything together.
Mhm.
And when you take her out of the equation like that, especially with her relationship with Clark, you you try to belittle her importance, especially to build up Lois, then yeah, you her books and stuff aren't going to be have the sales that it should have. Um 2017 having her first movie is unacceptable. Um
She should have had one around the time that Superman and Batman were getting multiple movies.
yes. Um then her sequel, as bad as it was, unacceptable. And now, with Gunn, I mean, he's doing a prequel show. I, it's
Uh,
his first chapter. He said that it is more projects. You should have a Wonder Woman film because you already have
exactly.
Superman Legacy. You
And
have
Batman.
Batman and Robin, and you just have Wonder Woman as a prequel show, as a show. That is just not, no, you don't do that to your main female, hero. And
It's
with
because that way he can bring in a bunch of movies about characters that no one cares about for his starting thing. I get that you want to bring in a bunch of obscure characters, Gunn. I commend you for that. But particularly with the history DC has in films, you need to establish the characters everyone knows first. Then they'll take the risk on the obscure characters.
right, right. And also with Superman, with his, I mean, everyone refers back to the 78 movie, and that's
Mhm.
pretty much like, I guess, the base. But the sequel, it sort of is talked about, but not as much as the first. And then the
Mhm.
other movies are just totally
The other
ignored,
movies people pretend don't exist.
don't exist. So his character has pretty much suffered from this shadow cloud of the 78 movie, and then the post-crisis status quo, especially within the 90s, has just really just divided this character. Because first, um nobody, the the people who say that they're fans of Superman, they do not want to acknowledge his Kryptonian roots at all. They
Nope.
want to just, and it's the Clark is who I am, Superman is what I can do. That's it, that's all. And that part just totally it ruins the character, and it's not the character. The
Because he is
character,
Kryptonian. Even Jim Lee said that if you watch the documentary on Jim Lee's life when he's going over the New 52, when he's talking about the armor change, he goes, "Yeah, we thought maybe make the costume look more alien because he is Kryptonian." And that's what you got to understand. And this is one of the things that I think works best with Superman and Wonder Woman. I was saying this in the Discord group, is that Wonder Woman encourages everyone to embrace embrace all that they are. With Lois, he will always be ignoring the Kryptonian part of his heritage. How do I know this? Because he's been doing that whenever he was with Lois. But when he's with Wonder Woman, it's more like, let me know who you are as a whole. That's why she calls him both Clark and Kal-El.
yeah. Um, Even within, I think, the recently, I mean, they want to go within the 90s to early 2000s, lean heavily on that. And that leans heavily on him being more with the glasses. I do like the glasses disguise and everything, but I just don't like that he bends over backwards to make the lie his truth when it's not. You're not just a guy from Kansas who happened to have powers. No, you are someone from a total different planet. Your birth name is totally different, and you wear the house shield on your chest.
Yeah.
How can you do that but then ignore, where you came from? I don't see
Hell,
that
you
core.
hang out in a fortress of solitude that's literally wall to wall Kryptonian heritage.
Right. Why have, but then again, even now, they want to ignore that too. I mean, the only, especially with Rebirth, it was Superman in a bubble with just Lois and John. That's all that mattered. Even the world can basically burn, and he, was like, well, as long as I have Lois and John, that's it.
I know.
Um,
That was my other problem with that series because I'm like, he was probably like, well, they have a Superman. Doesn't matter. You're Superman. Even if you're not the prime Earth Superman, you know that when there's danger, I gotta go. Particularly like Darkseid, the anti-monitor. You know the anti-monitor, dude, because you were there. Don't tell me you didn't think that, like, oh, they got it. So Darkseid and the anti-monitor are fighting, and you didn't think this might be a good idea for you to like show up and go, I think I have to help you guys out here.
no, he wanted to play house for 10 years. He hid for 10 years, which that is something that just within storytelling, with all the revisionism that they had to do, and it still doesn't make sense. It just, this Superman, whatever, uh, with Reborn, Jargons had already said that he isn't post crisis and he isn't New 52. He's like a total different Superman, even though he has kind of like the basics of post crisis. But again, the only post crisis part is death, death of Superman, the marriage, now John. Um, that's
It's
pretty
kind of
much
funny.
it.
So much of the past that they highlight, besides the new 52 suit, is post crisis. So if you're trying to make me think that this isn't like that he's like somewhere in between, at least show him using the solar flare power once.
Yeah, none of the new 52, especially with bringing back the Kents. And the thing is, the Kents were pretty, well, I think that artists varied, but they were pretty young. So for them to now be shown as kind of like much more older, you know, you can tell this isn't new 52. Um,
Yeah.
his backstory isn't new 52. I mean, just nothing he is new 52 except for trying to give him the suit, which still doesn't make sense because the suit wasn't um for when he had, I think he was supposed to wear it between the death arc and the return. He had the black suit, and then
Yeah.
trying to have him with the suit on, and if you show any images, it would be like, oh, so when he returned, he went with Diana or something. I mean, that is why Jargons wanted to ignore the relationship, but the relationship is now actually in somewhere. So yeah, it really
They
doesn't, nothing
reference it
makes
in
sense.
Wonder Woman comics. That's the astounding part. He said that we eliminated it from canon. Then why is it showing up in modern Woman comics as a flashback, dude? Get your story right if you're going to tell me one thing.
I mean, even within her comments, it was supposed to be in hallucination, you know. So, um, yeah. But the thing is, it's only in her comics because, well, her history is in a flux anyway too. Because she's supposed to be she's supposed to be the first hero of DC now, inspire the JSA.
Oh, that was
Um,
done the minute that they did 5G.
yeah. Um, so her, and then with I guess Superman's, he was supposed to be like just as old as her,
Right
but
there.
like,
Because that's
yeah,
clearly the new 52 Superman. I see the collar.
yeah, yeah. And also even in Wonder Woman 800, I mean, those, well, within that whole part of Conrad's writing, especially when it started with Immortal Wonder Woman, how he, was talking
Mm-hmm.
about when she says that she loved him, when she said that she hoped that that his last thoughts were her, you kind of like, they went for the safe route of ambiguity because, of course, they didn't want the loudmouth, trolls. Even though they got it anyway, it was still that. And then they did have little bits and pieces here and there when he came back from War World in the Trinity team up. You know, uh, at the end of one of the issues, right before the Trinity um, team up, she said, "Welcome home. I'll always answer your call," and it gave off this very flirty vibe, you know. Um, then within the Trinity team up, it was Clark saying he will always be there for her, and then it was another uh, instant when he said she can always come to him and talk. And then you have Wonder Woman 800 where they're in this dream together, and that wasn't very friendly. I mean, it was friendly, but it was more than friendly, you know.
Yeah, and I'm like, the majority. It's like even in 800, the way they hug each other. I've hugged my female friends. Not once did it look like that. I'm sorry, that's not the way friends hug each other, or even like the way they interact. Because if you notice, even when she came back at the end of Infinite Frontier, when she reemerged and it was like, oh, we all knew you would show up, and she hugged Superman, or even in like the last ride, the point is whenever she hugs Superman, it's always very intimate, way more than an actual friend would.
Yeah, I mean, that is their relationship. It's even if you want them to stay as friends, it has to have that underlying tension. It has to have that, well, they can have either a romantic past that I don't like it when people say it doesn't work because it does work. It's just that because of the status quo that they want, which is Clark married or with Lois, that it can't be possible. And it is one comic where I think her name is Liberty Bell
Yeah.
or Lady Liberty.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're going to talk about. Are you talking about the thing in the where they have to hunt down the members of the Legion, and then someone saying, "Oh yeah, we always thought you would be married to Superman," and then she didn't say anything about like I only care about him as a friend. All she said was he's married.
Yeah, she says he's married or she says he's unavailable. You know,
Yeah, she didn't say anything about like I don't really feel that way for him.
yeah, it's those kind of things where it's kind of like I like to place it in a wrong time but right person kind of way. I
Yeah,
think that is more apt for them is
and
because
that
yeah,
is.
they are, and that's pretty much how our going back to our hypothetical cinematic universe is is that within our movies they are building this friendship first and this romance, and yeah, it is a can we be together, and at moments we would have them like in that temporarily wrong wrong time right person type
And that's the
thing.
beginning thing. And the thing about it, the theme of this cinematic universe, I think, would be responsibility because they're juggling the responsibilities to each other and then to of their jobs as superheroes. So they're because that's one of the strengths of the Sewell run because it was pretty much like them trying to figure out how do we be together but also be superheroes together.
Yeah, yeah, and that's pretty much how relationships work.
Mhm.
Reality. I think that so many people are stuck with it is a fantasy, it is fairy tales, fiction.
To a
But
degree.
yeah, but Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship also resonates with real people with real relationships, and it's pretty much founded on real relationships real situations and real feelings. Because, especially as a power couple, and when you think of what a power couple is by definition, that is who they are. These individuals who have their own thing, but they're coming together to bring their individual, you know, um, elements together and making something totally new, um, and seeing if it works. And that is something that with Lois and Clark or Steve and Diana, these two characters are part of their supporting cast. So they are this checkbox love interest, but they don't actually bring anything new. They bring what you expect. And when you want, the audience, new audience to invest, you want something that isn't is that is unexpected, and that you can be like, oh well, what can this what more can this bring, and get people involved.
100%. So, and honestly, again, this just goes back to the general theme of this, because here's the thing. I still maintain that DC is better than Marvel. 100%. All their characters, everything is better. Problem is DC knows that they are better than Marvel, but they don't do anything to demonstrate that, because they have all this potential, but they waste it over and over and over again.
I mean, what Marvel does, and that's the thing, Marvel sees DC's potential. I mean, most of their characters are pretty much like copycats anyway.
Have you seen the Squadron
So,
Supreme?
right. So they take these ideas and produce them much faster and first, to where it seemed like it's DC that's late to the game, that's, copying Marvel. But just like with Marvel's cinematic universe, it it pretty much set the standard for comic book movies that, yeah, now people are kind of having the comic book movie fatigue. Um, but Marvel did present a very well at the beginning, well established shared universe where you do have these established relationships and dynamics that make sense and that people were invested in. And they did honor, I mean, they did have some changes, but they did honor relationships that pretty much was in the comics, you know. And then and even team ups, they did have the team ups that DC should have. You had Ant-Man having Ant-Man and Wasp. Ant-Man and Wasp, I mean, if you can have that, DC could have countered that with Superman and Wonder Woman. And
Yeah.
that would have, you know, set everything off.
Well, first off, if you also do a book and or a movie that's titled The Wedding of Superman and Wonder Woman, that's going to sell. That is 100% going to sell, particularly with the collector's market.
Right. I mean, just think if anybody was you have like, not only do you have Superman's rogues, you have Wonder Woman's rogues, you have the gods, you have well, if they were to go with New 52, we have the gods. If they do the wedding, if they do have another reboot or something like that, and hopefully they will bring them back how they were, or semi, you have the gods there too. Just like how I love that page um within the book where everybody is having a reaction when their relationship is out in public.
I love Green
And
Lantern. Man's got no respect for dibs.
yeah, that whole page, imagine them in their wedding attire, and that's the reaction of everyone again. that will be just the page, to show them being together as a couple and then their wedding. That was pretty much full circle. And yeah, just that page alone will sell gangbusters, you know, be wallpapers, anything like that.
Oh, Lord knows I have an entire folder on my computer that's all Superman and Wonder Woman wallpapers because I'm kind of obsessed, as you know. So more on that in a future episode. So on that note, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Britt, it was a pleasure to be doing this episode with you. Is there any updates that you can share with us concerning any possible stories? Hint, hint.
Oh, yes. So I will be uploading a one shot that you have read.
It's
And
awesome.
and I do have more one shots that I will be uploading and sending later on too. And more for the Athens story. Do have a story with Maxima that I've extended a little bit
Oh,
more. Yeah, that one is kind of fun. Now that I'm getting to her character, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, this is going to be extended. And then more with Austria. I've missed my little girl.
yeah. Honestly, you
Um,
haven't touched that universe in a long time.
yeah, I do have some that needs to be tweaked with her, but yeah, I have something coming up with her.
Sweet. On my side, if you guys know me, you know I'm working on a comic, and there's going to be mucho Super Wonder references, particularly at the end. I'll show Britt that later. But again, I just want to reiterate: like, comment, subscribe, share this episode to anyone that you think needs logic in terms of shipping, and also consider joining me and becoming a member so you can get more involved in the content creation process. And plus you get a shout out in every episode. So on that note, actually, I want to give a shout out to my first member, Taladia Plays, my brother, and who co-hosts content with me. So thank you, Taladia. On that note, everyone, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Bye.